Okay, well, great to be back in this setting, game week. Obviously a big time opportunity in front of us down in Albuquerque on Saturday to play against a Mountain West team that I suspect is going to be very much ready to go. And for us to get back out on that game field, I know it's always a lot of anticipation that goes into these opportunities, whether it's week 0, week 1. This team started putting everything together back in January, and I've appreciated the deliberate nature of how we went about our business. We've talked a lot about one day at a time, winning that day, 1-0, and the guys have really stuck to that through the course of the winter, the spring, the summer, and then now fall camp. So we're 3 weeks plus into our fall camp, and things have started to sort out for sure. The team is never completely healthy going into game 1. By and large, we're healthy. Typically, injuries tend to concentrate in one spot, and that has happened to us a little bit in the offensive line. Fortunately, it was a position group that we were deep, leaving spring ball. So here we sit, ready to go. Again, big time opportunity for us against what I suspect can be a very good opponent, and the opportunity to play on national TV is one that we don't get all too often. So we're gonna go down there and make the best of that opportunity, and just go out there and compete. I'm really excited to see where this group is at. 23 seniors, we've talked about it, experienced group of guys, a group that they know this is their last shot, and excited for those guys to get this chance come Saturday. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
What kind of strides do you feel like this group had kind of made as a team over the last few weeks in fall camp?
Well, you start diving into an opponent first off, and that's really going back to the middle of last week. And I've been really pleased with the efforts of our scout team. That's always something that transition-wise is a little tricky, but I think what it shows is we got a lot of talented players that are young, that are waiting their turn, that are doing the things they need to do. I do think within the position groups that we've had, battles in depth, I think we've had guys go after it. So, offense and defensively, you fine tune who you are schematically. I think that's happened. I know over the last couple of weeks as we've scrimmaged and got into this game plan for both sides of the ball to know who we can lean on, who needs to be our playmakers, etc. I think that stuff has happened, but it needs to play out on the game field, and that's why I know we're all so anxious to get to Saturday.
A lot of new faces on this New Mexico team. What does that look like preparation-wise, and when there's so many, unknowns over there?
Well, I think you want to try to figure out as much as you can. Many times these game ones are just this, where there's question marks of some sort. And this one, I think there's a lot of question marks. I think the one thing, their personnel is one side of it, a lot of turnover on the roster. I think coaching-wise, though, you can look at a group that for the most part has been together. I know it goes back a couple of years to Virginia, but you can certainly gain something from what they've been when they've been together before, offense, defense, special teams. But you got to make it more about, okay, how can we play? How can we react in this setting? I think that's the thing that this has to be more about. It's a little bit less game plan predicated than you'll get when you get in the middle of the season and you feel like you really have people dialed in. In this case, we gotta lean on what we can do best. Lean on those players in particular that we can count on to make plays and be able to make adjustments once you get into the flow of the game.
You mentioned the O-line depth. I'm having Cole Stain back now at center for Justice. Can you just say what you've seen from Cole since he's returned from injury this camp?
Yeah, Cole's looked really good. Really getting him back full scale on Monday is what we've had, and he was doing things leading up to that. But I know it's a long time coming from Cole. For Cole, this goes back really to last summer for him. He sustained 2 injuries through the course of both summer and then early fall last year that left him out for the season. But prior to that, Cole's a incredibly experienced guy, playing both guard spots, playing center, even being able to play tackle at times. So to be able to insert him in that spot, that wasn't a plan, but I think the plan was he was going to be our next man up at center, and it just so happened that those days kind of coincided, Saturday into a Monday, from Justice going down to Cole getting ready to go. So felt good about it, and in some ways he's picked up right where he left off, which is quite a ways in the rear view.
The other O-line reshuffling, you've talked about Titan and then Marcus switching over, but just how do you feel about that right side right now with those two guys in those two positions?
Well, the idea is to get our best guys out there. I think what became apparent is that Titan was one of our best 5 available. Marcus provides flexibility, played a little bit of guard last year, and being able to lock Titan into the tackle spot versus him being the flexible guy is the idea behind it. I know on the left side, Connor Moore provides us a little bit of that too. I think Cedric Jefferson is right there kind of waiting in the wings as well, and Cedric's got some potential to play both tackle spots too. So, that's what that's about, is getting our best 5 out there, having a few guys, and it's our older guys, it's Marcus, or it's more experienced guys, because it's Marcus, it's Connor, it's Cole, that ultimately JT I think will provide us flexibility. So that's the message there, best 5 out there, and we've been able to practice in a manner where those guys that are playing multiple positions have been practicing multiple positions.
I forget if you said JT, is he status up in the air?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say it's still up in the air. Anytime you have a hand injury and you're playing football, period, you need to use your hands. So where we get through the course of the next couple of days will kind of dictate where he's at.
I guess as far as injuries are concerned, I know we've mentioned a few guys there at fall camp. Are there anybody else kind of lingering going into week 1?
You flip over to the defensive side. I know we've had some guys out here and there, but really feel good about where that whole group is. I know, big picture wise, Julius Davis, Drew Polidor will be out for a little while. But by and large, all those guys that you haven't seen out there through the course of fall camp are, and then offensive skill wise, I guess other than Julius, you think about running backs, tight ends, receivers, everybody that we hope could go will go, and that's where we stand. It's been concentrated a lot to that offensive line group for whatever reason. That's kind of the way the world works a little bit. So feel like relative to 3 weeks of fall camp, we're in a pretty good spot.
Looking at New Mexico, I guess what do you know about their offense, kind of their quarterback situation?
Well, I think the quarterback is the situation. Didn't play full time last year, but when he played, was very effective. Got some meaningful reps in some big games for them, and did a great job. He's really athletic, and he was a true freshman last year. So you think about playing as a true freshman in the Mountain West, being able to make plays with his legs, but with his arm as well, and doing it at critical moments. I think that's certainly where it starts for them. Really impressed with what he put on film last year, and I'm sure this new staff was as well when they came in. So, I imagine there's a mindset to craft their offense around his ability, and they've obviously added a lot of new faces. They've had some guys that have played effectively for them return. So I think skill-wise, they're a good outfit. That's how we see it.
And then I guess defensively, kind of same deal. What do you know about that group?
Yeah, a lot of new faces on the defensive side. I know the scheme that they have been running has some carryover to what Coach Mendenhall's teams have run in the past. So you liken that they're going to, stick within the scheme to some degree. But I think they've been able to add a lot of guys. So I'm sure through camp, that's the tricky part for us, looking at okay, who are those guys really emerging, so that they can lean on them. I know their secondary to me has a lot of talent. So the more talent you have in the secondary, the more you can do, the more different ways you can cover, the more aggressive you can be with the front 7. So I think defensively we got to be prepared for quite a bit, and hopefully get to the point where we see them establishing a rhythm, and we can go towards that. But I think talent-wise, very impressed with what, all these pieces that are being put together now, how they how they come together, how they utilize them. That's going to have to unfold a little bit on Saturday for us to see.
Do you have much experience with Mendenhall, or Coach Mendenhall? Have you faced him before?
I have not. We played BYU the year after he left in the Poinsettia Bowl, but certainly a lot of respect for the consistency between BYU and Virginia his teams have had, and anytime you put in those years as a head coach, multiple programs. I know he was a successful assistant in front of that. A lot of respect for just his ability as a head coach to organize, to motivate, to do things the right way. And, I know it's apparent that this team that we're going to face has new life. I'm sure they believe differently than they did, maybe through the course of last season. And, I expect that we're going to get their best shot coming out of the gates this year.
And unless I'm forgetting one, but I don't think you've had an FBS win at MSU. Do you and the players, is there an extra motivation to get that one? Is there any sense of that going into this game?
Well, I think I think we look at it. This is really good competition that we're going to face. It's going to test us in a lot of different ways. I think that's the biggest thing. Whether you play a really good FCS non-conference opponent, or in this case an FBS opponent, you want to be tested. You want to see where you're at, and we're certain that New Mexico's going to provide that.
Coach, can you tell me what just the excitement level is amongst the guys right now, knowing that camp's coming to a close, start of the season is now less than a week away?
Yeah, I think they, even today, I think there's an intentionality about how we practiced, but this group's been around the block. They're not getting too far ahead of themselves, but I know that, again, having an opportunity to go on the field come Saturday is hanging out there. It's a carrot for sure. And anytime you get 3+ weeks against, where you're just going against each other, that opportunity to face someone else is beyond the anticipation. I think this is always such an exciting time. You talk about the first day of camp being so exciting to switch gears, but now it's that week one, that opportunity to play another opponent. It's similar as far as the excitement goes.
And how does getting to be one of those rare teams selected to play week 0 against an FBS team, national attention kind of thing, how does that factor into the excitement?
Well, it's just here faster. I think you feel fortunate that you get the opportunity sooner than later. I think for us, we've been on national TV a few times through the last few years, but another one of those chances where all eyes that people want to watch football will be on ours, and that's important for our university, our athletic department, but our players too. Our players come from a lot of different places, and their ability to be on TV and have their people back home, I guess, is a little extra incentive. And we got to go out and play our brand of football and show what we're all about come Saturday.
Going down to Albuquerque this early in the season, how are you preparing your players to just handle that summer heat during the game, especially during the day?
Well, I think you just make sure they're aware of it. Our ability to replicate that heat isn't instantaneous. We've had some hot days. I think the last couple days here have been a little warmer. But I think you talk about being hydrated. You talk about depth. I think in a game like this, the more people you can play, the less you need to lean on a very thin roster. I think that defeats the heat as well as anything. And I know when we get down there doing things to keep the guys cool, I think is different for a game like this than maybe other games that we've had. But you can only do so much. You can prepare all winter, spring, and summer physically, so you hope that you're in the best condition, both physically but mentally. I think there's a mindset that goes into the extremes, whether it's hot or cold. We'll see them both this year, I'm sure, and it's really got to be, you got to be really strong mentally to hold up, versus just the physical component to it.
Alec Eichert, I guess, what have you kind of seen at him in fall camp, and what went into giving him that starting role?
Yeah, I think Alec, a great addition for us. When we brought him in, there was a void left by transfer, but it's not about Alec completely replacing a guy like Sebastian Valdez, but I think in his own right, his strength, his athleticism, he transferred because he wanted an opportunity to play, and there's a lot of hard work that had to go in, weight gain that had to go in for that all to play out over the last 8 months. And Alex put the work in. He's been consistent. We do have Zach Black returning. Zach's played some football, but not enough at this point to just be continuing to move on. So those two will both play. Paul Broad and Blake Schmidt will both play as well. So I think right now with that group of 4, you'll see them all out there. But been pleased with Alex' continued improvement. Thinking about a lot of guys, the jumps they've made from spring to fall. You think of younger players a lot of times, but here's a case of a guy that is a little older, but young in our system and is really, taken to it, and excited to see him out there.
Just what's kind of your thoughts on Casey now entering the season as the starter again?
Well, I think I've spoke to it before. Each and every position, there's got to be room for development, and I think Casey got thrown out there last year, and there was some good, some bad, but there was room for development on the other side, and that's physical, that's mental, but it's all about creating more consistency. And through this, you combine spring and even summer and now fall, I do feel like his consistency is in a different place than it was mid-season when he took over. He was handed the job in some sense more than he won that job, and I think he learned, we learned through that, and I've been pleased with his continued progress. It doesn't mean he's going to be perfect. I think we all can understand that. Rare for a kicker to be perfect. I know there's been some that have been near perfect through some seasons, and that's typically at the NFL level. So, we got to be wise about when we utilize and what we ask him to do, and when he's out there, we got to count on him to, put the points on the board. And I think we feel like we're in a much different place with him now than, if you'd asked me last November.
Coulter, do you have anything?
Yeah, hey coach, I know you said not much crossover with Mendenhall, but how would you just describe their defensive scheme, what they like to do, and how do you think that matches up with what you guys like to do offensively?
Well, multiple front, multiple coverage, the ability to bring quite a bit of pressure. I think it could be a lot of things. I do think there's some carryover to some of the teams we see on a regular basis within our conference. We got to keep things relatively simple on our end and then be able to adjust. I think that's probably the biggest thing in a game like this with a team that, you just don't know. I think you could have an idea based on, looking at Virginia film or even Vanderbilt film from the last couple of years where Coach Howell's been. But ultimately, okay, let's do what we think we can do well that does match up against multiple fronts, movement, pressure, and ultimately, again, find whatever rhythm they're getting into the best we can and adjust to that. So, we face several teams that'll jump in and out of 3 and 4 down sets. We face several teams that will mix up coverage, will pressure more at times, and I think you try to take all those experiences and bring them forward. But this will be a new opponent, a little bit different of uncertainty going in, and we really got to be good at what we do.
Pre-snap, does more responsibility then fall on Tommy with Justice out, or how does that dynamic work?
I think that's a fair discussion. I think Cole's a smart enough young man player. He doesn't have that experience at that position that certainly Justice provided, but he's got plenty of experience playing, and he's a very intelligent young man in his own right. So I think making the line calls, the front identification, and being on the same page for those 5 guys plus the tight ends will fall on Cole. We're always in position to put run game decisions, protection decisions on Tommy's plate. We've done that plenty over the last couple of years in particular. So it'll be a combo, I guess, is the best way to answer it.
When it comes to just the logistics of this trip, you've made this trip before, so does that help you just in terms of like the details behind the game?
Oh, I think it helps to be familiar with the setting. What does the locker room look like now? I haven't been down there since 18, I suppose. but what does the field look like? What's the sideline setup? All those types of things. Different hotel, I guess, but just, yeah, I think anytime you've been somewhere, there's the logistic side of things, there's less questions. Haven't played there in August. We did have a game in Las Cruces in August, and I know that was something back. That was that same year in 18. Different elevations for sure, but just how to, this isn't the first time I've coached in the game early in the season that could be a hot one. So I think you take those experiences at the same time. We haven't had, really anything too hot in my 3 years here, but I've coached along with our staff in plenty of these early season games where you got to beat the heat, and we'll lean on those experiences just beyond the experience of myself coaching in Albuquerque.
Coach Mendenhall just mentioned, he said, hey, we're not really looking at this as FBS versus FCS. He said, I turn on the film, I look at a team that looks pretty much like a Mountain West Division I outfit. So what do you think of that perspective? Do you feel like the playing field, especially out west, is as even as it's ever been?
Well, you got to see how the season plays out. You got to see how this game plays out. But I think recent history, most of the games between our conference and the Mountain West have been competitive. I know teams in our league have found a way to win a few of them for sure each of these years. And I think in a one game setting, especially an early game setting, I think our expectation is that we can compete with them. And obviously the scholarship difference maybe does play out over the course of a season. Depth maybe becomes different in some regard, but I think the teams in our league schedule these games, because I think they feel like they can compete, and that's the opportunity we have in front of us. I know we were real close a couple years back down in Wyoming, and here we got another opportunity to see where we're at relative to a Mountain West team, and I know our guys are excited for it.
The fact that you did play so well, and also it was such a close game in Laramie, and a lot of guys on that team are on this team, does that help you too, sort of in terms of the mentality of going on the road to play Mountain West?
Yeah, I suppose. I know the next year we go to Oregon State, and that game didn't go nearly as well. And you could say, well, they're Pac-12, they're Mountain West. But I think we got to go in every game where the thought process is we're going to compete, and we're going after a win here. It's really got to be that simple in our frame of mind. And I would think those two experiences also show that, hey, if we're going to win this game, we got to be on. There's no room for error. We had plenty of error that day in Portland when we played Oregon State, and even closing that game out in Laramie, we had errors. So, anytime you play a good team, a talented team, a team that has depth, you need to be on. You need to be on for 4 quarters, and that's what we aim to do.
Well, a lot of times the mismatch so much. You mentioned the depth, but also was in the trenches. But you guys are so good up front. Does that give you some confidence? Just the fact that you guys are good on the offensive and defensive lines?
Yeah, I think anybody who we play, I hope we can compete up front, and that is really got to be our calling card on each side of the ball. Our success on offense starts with our ability to be successful up front and move people and get on people and stay on people. Defensively, that success starts with the ability of our front to disrupt, limit the run game, get after the passer on 3rd down. And our experience up front, it does make you feel like, okay, at least starting there, we should be in a good place. And ideally in the second, the secondary and our offensive skill, we got guys that are equipped to make plays at the same time. It does take all of it, but it certainly does start up front on both sides.
That's all I need. Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Adam Deal in Albuquerque, do you have anything?
Yeah, Adam Deal with ESPN Radio 101.7, the team here in Albuquerque, Coach. Just wanted to ask you talked about week 0 and the excitement around that. Do you feel like that's a week lost in preparation, or would you prefer to start in week 1, or do you welcome the national TV and the festivities of week 0?
Well, I look at it, the week lost is in May. It's we got our summer program started a week earlier than we would otherwise, but leading from that first week of summer now through fall camp, our prep would look no differently as far as the volume goes. So getting our minds around that, this early game, really goes back to leaving spring ball saying, hey guys, this is when we need to come back. Here's going to be our 8 weeks. Fall camp's going to start a week earlier. School doesn't start for us until Wednesday, so that part, we're going to be into football a little bit longer relative to that first game. So, no, I think it's a good opportunity. I don't know that doing this every year makes sense, but it made sense for us this year to get this opportunity to play, I suppose, on this stage against this opponent. And our preparation, the volume is the same as it would have been otherwise.
And lastly, Coach, do you think that when you get to Albuquerque, that there is maybe a problem with the heat? Is there a problem with the altitude being so high that your players might not be used to?
Well, the altitude piece, not necessarily. We're just below 5,000 feet, so I think I'm encouraged by that fact. I know it's higher there, but not much higher. Yeah, and then the heat, like I said, it's something we can't replicate. But we had a hot stretch in July. Our guys trained really hard in 90+ degree weather on a daily basis. We've had our share of hot days, but again, it is going to be hot down there. We're going to have to do our best to mitigate that, whether that's pregame, on the sideline, and then with depth. It's going to be hot, and we're going to have to deal with it, I guess, is the best way I could put it. But our guys are fully aware what the temperature is going to be, and we're going to have to take that on just as much as the Lobos.
One more for me. Coach Mendenhall talked about how it's important not to look at your guys as just a team, but a program, and how well built it has been. Talk about how you built your program.
Well, I got the job in 2021, and the team in 19 was coming off of a build. They've been to the semifinals. Our program has a long-standing tradition of success, and I think in our 3 years plus now, it's built upon that. It's really trying to be as consistent as an outfit as we possibly can. Ideally be the same team week in and week out that shows up. Really try to avoid those peaks and valleys that some inconsistent teams might have. Build it from the inside out. Really try to be strong and powerful in the offense and defensive lines. Be multiple on our offense. And I'd say the same on defense. And so I think right now we feel good about where our culture is at. Our guys' willingness to develop, to maximize who they are in their time here. And then, our investment in them has allowed for that to continue to grow. So, we're a program, I believe, that's got high expectations for good reason. And, going down there is an opportunity again to show kind of where we're at. And I have the utmost respect for what our opponent's going to look like on Saturday. They are going to be hungry. They're going to be talented. And we are going to have, a great battle in front of us.